Have you ever wondered if God is truly working in your life? If His hand is moving behind the scenes, shaping your path, protecting you, guiding you? When God blesses you, it's not just something you feel, it's something you see. Tangible, real, life-changing. But here's the thing, God's blessings aren't always flashy. They're not always wrapped in luxury or success. No, the deepest blessings often arrive quietly, in the stillness of your heart, in the peace that doesn't make sense, and in the moments where everything begins to shift, even when the world around you stays the same. Let's talk about the signs. Because when God blesses you, there are signs that become impossible to ignore. Sign number 1, a peace that defies logic. The first, and perhaps most profound sign, is peace. Not just any peace, not the kind you get from everything going your way. This is a peace that shows up in spite of the chaos. A peace that holds you together when everything around you is falling apart. It's not the absence of trouble. It's the presence of God in the middle of the trouble. This peace doesn't come from your job, your bank account, or your relationships. It comes from the assurance that God is with you, right there in the storm, anchoring your soul. It's the quiet voice in your heart that says, "You're not alone. I've got you." This kind of peace doesn't make sense to the world. It's a divine calm that steadies you when life tries to shake you. You may still face obstacles. You may still walk through uncertainty. But within you, there's calm. Not because of what you can control, but because you trust the one who is in control. It's in those moments when your world should be crumbling, but your spirit is steady, that you realize this is not ordinary. This is supernatural. This is God's hand on your life. Sign number 2, doors begin to open that you couldn't unlock on your own. Another sign that God is blessing you, opportunities begin to appear. Doors swing open, doors that were once sealed shut. You don't have to force them. You don't have to manipulate or strive. They open on their own. Not because of your effort, but because of divine favor. It's as if the pieces of your life start falling into place. The people you need show up at the right time. The job offer comes unexpectedly. The breakthrough happens just when you were ready to give up. These aren't coincidences. These are divine appointments. Sometimes God closes doors to protect you, but when the timing is right, He opens others, the kind you never imagined you'd walk through. And when you step into them, you just know, this isn't luck. This is purpose. He is guiding you, positioning you, preparing you. And those opportunities, they're not just for your success. They're part of your calling. They're part of your mission. They are sacred assignments meant to draw you closer to His plan. Sign number 3, your character begins to transform. God's blessings aren't just about what you get. They're also about who you become. When He blesses you, He begins refining your character. You notice it in your patience, in your growing compassion, in the way you respond to stress, not with anxiety, but with trust. Your heart softens, your attitude shifts. You no longer react to life the same way. This isn't just self-improvement. This is soul-deep transformation. The fruit of the Spirit begins to bloom in your life. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And the beauty of it is, others begin to notice. People see the difference in you, and that difference, it becomes a reflection of God's glory. Blessings from God are not meant to stop with you. They're meant to flow through you, to impact the lives around you. When your character transforms, your life becomes a living testament of grace. And in a world starving for authenticity and love, that change in you becomes someone else's answered prayer. Sign number 5, your desires begin to shift. Here's a subtle but powerful sign that you're walking in God's blessing. Your dreams begin to change. The things you used to crave, wealth, validation, status, start losing their grip on you. They're no longer the goal. Instead, something deeper begins to rise. You start wanting what God wants. Your heart aligns with His. Suddenly, success isn't about being seen. It's about being used. You're no longer obsessed with the spotlight. You're focused on the impact. When that shift happens, life feels different, not because it's easier, but because it's purposeful. You wake up with clarity. You make decisions not based on fear or ego, but on calling and conviction. That alignment, when your will and God's will become one, is one of the greatest blessings you can ever experience. It doesn't come overnight. It comes as you walk, as you trust, as you surrender more of yourself to something greater. And when you do, fulfillment follows. A kind of joy that doesn't fade, a satisfaction that doesn't depend on applause, a confidence that doesn't need approval, because you know you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Sign number 6, you become a blessing to others. Lastly, when God blesses you, the blessing doesn't stay with you, it flows through you. You become a vessel, a carrier of hope, a walking example of what God's favor looks like in action. Whether through words, service, generosity, or simple presence, your life starts lifting others. You begin to speak life where there was discouragement. You become light in dark places. And you begin to realize, this is what I was made for. Blessing is never meant to be hoarded. It's meant to be multiplied. And when God sees that He can trust you with it, He expands it. More peace, more influence, more impact. Not so you can build your kingdom, but so you can build His.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone. When God blesses you, there's something sacred about how your life begins to evolve. It's not just a shift in circumstances, it's a shift in your being. And one of the most unmistakable signs is how peace begins to flood areas that used to be filled with anxiety, fear, or restlessness. This is not an ordinary peace. It's not the kind you get from everything finally going right. In fact, it often shows up when things are still uncertain. It's divine, supernatural, unshakable. The power of peace in chaos. Life is unpredictable. We face things that test our patience and break our hearts. Financial pressure, illness, conflict, rejection, failure. And in the middle of all that, it's natural to feel overwhelmed. But when God blesses you, there's a shift. The chaos doesn't stop, but your reaction to it does. Instead of panicking, you find stillness. Instead of fear, there's faith. Your mind, which used to be constantly spinning, suddenly finds rest. Why? Because peace isn't about your surroundings, it's about your source. When God is your source, peace becomes your default. You begin to walk through storms with a calm that others can't understand. People around you start to notice, how are you so calm when everything is going wrong? And the answer is simple, because I know who's in control. Peace as a sign of God's presence. This peace becomes your anchor, your refuge. When the world feels loud and chaotic, God's peace becomes a sanctuary in your soul. It reminds you that He hasn't forgotten you, that He's walking with you through the fire, that no matter how uncertain life gets, His promises are still true. And that's when something amazing happens. Your circumstances may not change right away, but you do. This peace renews your strength. It gives you clarity. It becomes the foundation on which you build your decisions, your mindset, and your future. It helps you rise above the noise and stay focused on the path He's prepared for you. This is why peace is not just a blessing, it's a confirmation, a signal from heaven that says, you're covered, I'm with you, keep going. Peace doesn't mean the absence of problems, it means you're not facing them alone. And the incredible thing about this kind of peace is that it doesn't just affect you, it affects everyone around you. Your family sees it, your friends feel it, even strangers sense something different about you.
You become a source of calm in the chaos, a steady hand in shaky moments. You become someone others look to when they don't know what to do, because peace is contagious, and when it comes from God, it can't be faked. It's real, it's powerful, and it's radiant. When God opens doors. There's another undeniable sign that God is blessing you. Closed doors begin to open, miraculously, effortlessly. We all know what it feels like to knock and hear nothing. To pray, to hustle, to push, and still be met with silence. Those moments are frustrating. They make you question yourself, your direction, your worth. But then, one day, the door opens. Not the one you were knocking on, maybe, but one you never expected. And when you walk through it, it just feels right. That's how God works. He doesn't always open the door you want. He opens the door you need. And when it opens, you'll know. The divine timing of opportunity. The thing about divine doors is they don't operate on our schedule. They don't respond to pressure or deadlines. They swing open at the perfect time, not a second early, not a second late. And the timing often feels uncomfortable. It might happen just after you've stopped trying, or just when you were ready to walk away. But that's how you know it's Him, because it doesn't come from your striving. It comes from His grace. God's blessings are never forced. They flow. And when you walk through a door He opens, there's a peace that follows you inside. You don't second-guess it. You don't feel anxious. You feel ready, even if you're still learning. You feel aligned, even if you don't fully understand the path ahead. That's the power of walking through a door opened by the hand of God. Every open door is an invitation to grow. But don't miss this. Every open door comes with responsibility. When God gives you an opportunity, He's not just giving you a platform. He's inviting you to step into greater purpose, to grow, to stretch, to walk in a deeper level of faith. It's not about comfort, it's about calling. When the blessing comes, it often requires more of you, more courage, more discipline, more trust. But here's the good news. He doesn't open doors that you're not ready for. He equips you for the rooms He's called you to walk into. And as you walk through them, even trembling, you begin to discover strengths you didn't know you had. You find favor where you thought you'd fail. You meet people who lift you higher. You take steps that feel bold, but somehow natural. Because when God opens a door, He walks through it with you. A shift in identity and purpose. As these doors open, something else begins to shift. Your identity. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of your past or your limitations. You start seeing yourself through the lens of God's purpose. You realize, I wasn't made just to survive. I was made to build, to create, to lead, to influence. And every opportunity God gives you becomes a piece of the puzzle, a part of your becoming. You don't need to chase every open door. You just need to walk through the right ones, the ones He's prepared for you. And as you do, you begin to walk not just with confidence, but with authority. Not because you have it all figured out, but because you know who called you. Living with expectation. Once you've experienced a door opening that you know came from God, your faith changes. You stop living in survival mode. You stop begging. You start expecting. You begin to walk like someone who knows they're favored. You stop fearing closed doors because you know if it didn't open, it wasn't for you. And if it did, you can trust it's part of a greater plan. This is the life of someone walking in divine blessing, not without struggle, but full of faith, not without effort, but guided by grace. God's blessings don't just change your circumstances, they change how you see yourself, how you move, how you live. And the doors he opens, they don't just bless you, they bless everyone connected to you.
When God blesses you, He doesn't just give you things. He reshapes the very essence of who you are. His favor doesn't just show up in your circumstances, it shows up in your character. This is one of the most powerful and humbling signs of God's blessing. You begin to change. Not because you're trying to impress anyone, not because you're chasing a title or religious image, but because God is working on you from the inside out. True blessing looks like inner growth. Let's be real. Growth is hard. It's uncomfortable. Sometimes it's downright painful. But when you're walking in God's blessing, you start to embrace growth, not resist it. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this trying to teach me? You begin to realize that blessing is not just about receiving, it's about becoming. And becoming who God created you to be means some things have to shift. Your patience starts to deepen. Your anger begins to fade. Your compassion grows in places where bitterness used to live. These aren't accidental changes. They're the result of God refining you. You start becoming more like Him. As His blessing begins to saturate your life, the fruits of the Spirit don't just become principles you admire, they become realities you live out. You become more patient, even when things don't go your way. You become more kind, even to people who don't deserve it. You respond to conflict with gentleness instead of retaliation. This is not about perfection, it's about progress. You're not trying to earn God's love, you're responding to it. And His blessing becomes evident in the way you treat others, speak to others, and even think about others. Your heart becomes more forgiving, your mind becomes more focused, and your spirit begins to radiate peace. The power of transformation is in the fruit. You want to know if someone is truly walking with God? Don't look at their car or their house, look at their fruit. Do they carry joy in hard seasons? Do they extend grace when others would strike back? Do they live with integrity when no one's watching? When God blesses you, the fruit of the Spirit begins to show up in the small details of your life. Not just in church on Sunday, but in traffic on Monday. Not just in public, but in private. That's the power of a transformed heart, and that's the kind of blessing that no one can take from you. Blessings aren't just for you, they're meant to flow through you. Here's a deeper truth. When God changes your character, He's not just doing it for you. He's doing it so that you can become a vessel for others. So that when people see you, they catch a glimpse of Him. So that your patience softens someone else's anger. Your kindness becomes someone else's healing. Your integrity becomes someone else's inspiration. This is why character transformation is one of the most important signs of God's blessing, because it's not about being seen, it's about being used. When God can trust you to carry His character, He will trust you with more of His calling. You develop new desires. Another undeniable sign that God is working in your life is this. The things that once captivated you don't anymore. Your appetite changes. You no longer crave applause, you crave purpose. You no longer chase validation, you chase alignment. It's not that ambition disappears, it just becomes redefined. Your success is no longer measured by how much you can gain, but by how much you can give. You stop asking, what do I want to do with my life, and start asking, God, what do you want to do through me? This shift is everything, because it means your heart is no longer being driven by ego, it's being led by obedience. The old you starts to fade. Maybe the old you used to panic under pressure. The old you held grudges. The old you needed constant recognition to feel worthy. But now you find peace in the middle of uncertainty.
You let go of what no longer serves you. You forgive more quickly. You no longer need the spotlight because you found something deeper. This doesn't happen overnight. It's not about instant transformation. It's about daily surrender. Day by day, God is chiseling away at the parts of you that no longer reflect His image and building in their place something stronger, something more loving, something more eternal. You reflect heaven in a hurting world. We live in a world that's desperate for authenticity, for kindness, for people who live what they believe. When you walk in the blessing of God, your life becomes a mirror. You don't have to preach. You become the message. The way you show up in rooms, the way you treat people who can do nothing for you, the way you carry peace when everyone else is anxious, it all speaks louder than words. And people notice, not because you're trying to impress them, but because God is shining through you. That's what happens when He changes your character. You become a living example of grace, and that's more powerful than any sermon ever could be. You become unshakable, not because you're strong, but because He is. When God blesses you, your strength starts to look different. It's not loud or aggressive. It's quiet, steady, rooted. You start standing firm in storms that used to knock you over. You stop second-guessing every decision. You trust God's timing. You trust His ways even when they don't make sense. That trust, that's what makes you unshakable. Not your willpower, not your grit, but your confidence in Him. Because when you've been through the fire and seen God bring you out, you start to walk differently. You carry the kind of faith that doesn't flinch. Your life becomes a testimony. And finally, when God blesses you through this transformation, your life tells a story of grace, of restoration, of quiet strength, of becoming who you were always meant to be. And the beauty of it all, that story begins to touch others. Without even trying, you start to inspire people, encourage people, remind people that God still transforms, that He still blesses, that He still uses broken people to do beautiful things. You become the evidence, the living proof that God is real, that He is good, and that when He blesses you, He changes everything.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone.
When God truly begins to bless your life, something beautiful happens. Your desires, your dreams, ambitions, and goals begin to align with His will. This shift doesn't feel forced. It feels natural. Like a quiet realization that you were made for more than chasing approval or collecting achievements. You start to see that what you used to want pales in comparison to what God is now stirring inside you. Desire turns to purpose. The world tells us to chase the biggest paycheck, the biggest platform, the loudest applause. But when God blesses you, your soul starts to crave something deeper. It's no longer about how high you can climb. It's about how deeply you can serve. It's no longer about being seen. It's about seeing others. And the more you walk with God, the more you start to understand that His purpose is bigger than your personal success. It's about impact. It's about eternity. Your career becomes more than a job. It becomes a mission. Your family becomes more than just people you live with. They become the first ministry you pour into. Your talents become tools, not trophies. And suddenly, life takes on a whole new depth. You're no longer driven by ego. You're led by obedience. One of the clearest signs that you're walking in God's blessing is this. Your decisions are no longer driven by fear, pressure, or ego. They're driven by obedience. Even when it doesn't make sense. Even when it costs you. because you start to understand that God's plan is always better. Even when you can't see the full picture, you begin to choose peace over popularity, calling over comfort, truth over trend. And in doing so, you discover a life that's not only more fulfilling, it's eternally significant. The things of this world lose their grip on you. When God blesses you, your appetite changes. What once satisfied you no longer does. Fame is fleeting. Wealth is unstable. Approval, it shifts with the wind. You begin to crave consistency, and that only comes from God. You start valuing stillness over noise, depth over hype, eternity over the temporary. And while the world around you might not understand this shift, you do. You've tasted something better. You've seen what it means to live with purpose, and nothing compares. A fulfillment that the world can't offer. You realize that the fulfillment you used to chase was always conditional. You felt good when people clapped. You felt valuable when you won. You felt secure when the money was flowing. But all of that fades. And now you found something the world can't take away. A peace that doesn't change with your bank account. A joy that doesn't depend on recognition. A sense of worth that doesn't fluctuate with your performance. Because it's not rooted in you. It's rooted in Him. You start asking different questions. The questions that used to dominate your mind begin to change. You used to ask, how can I win? How can I be seen? What do I get out of this? Now you ask, who can I serve? Where is God leading me? How can I bring glory to Him through this? This shift in mindset is not accidental. It's evidence of divine blessing. Because when your heart aligns with God's will, everything changes. You stop striving, you start trusting. You stop chasing the wind, you start walking in purpose. The pain starts to make sense. Here's something people don't always tell you. Sometimes blessing doesn't look like comfort. Sometimes it looks like clarity. And clarity often comes through pain. When God begins to align your desires with His, you start to look back on old disappointments and you see them differently. The relationship that ended, it protected you. The job that rejected you, it redirected you. The delay that frustrated you, it prepared you. And suddenly you realize all of it had purpose. All of it brought you to where you are now, walking in alignment with God's will, no longer chasing what doesn't fulfill. That is blessing. Not just the open doors, but the closed ones that shaped you. God's purpose becomes your compass. When you're walking in blessing, you stop needing a 5-year plan to feel safe. You stop obsessing over timelines. You stop panicking when things don't go your way. Why? Because you're not following your own map anymore. You're following His compass. And that compass doesn't always make logical sense, but it leads you exactly where you're supposed to go. You begin to walk in a kind of trust that changes how you live. You take risks you wouldn't have taken before. You let go of things more easily. You forgive faster. You love harder. You show up differently because you know who's guiding your steps. Even when it's hard, you keep going. Let's be honest. Walking in God's purpose doesn't mean life becomes easy. In fact, sometimes it gets harder. You'll face resistance. You'll have doubts. You'll wonder if you're crazy for walking away from what's normal or safe. But here's the difference. When you're walking in God's purpose, even the hard things feel worth it. You'll cry, but you won't quit. You'll question, but you won't walk away. Because deep down you know, this path was designed for you. And even when it gets tough, you'd rather be in the storm with God than in comfort without Him. That's when you know you're living in divine blessing. When you'd rather obey God and suffer than disobey Him and succeed. Fulfillment starts to multiply. Here's the beautiful part. The more you align with God's purpose, the more fulfilled you feel, and the more fulfilled you make others feel too. You start pouring into people. You start speaking life. You start creating things that bless others. Your presence becomes healing. Your story becomes hope. You begin to live a life that's not just about you anymore. It's about legacy. You begin to make eternal impact, not because you're perfect, but because you're willing to listen, willing to grow, willing to be used. That willingness, that surrender, that's what unlocks blessing after blessing. When God blesses you, He aligns you. He aligns your heart with His. He aligns your life with purpose. He aligns your steps with legacy. And that alignment brings fulfillment no paycheck, platform, or praise ever could.
There's a fulfillment that can't be bought. It can't be earned. It can't even be explained by the world's standards. It's the kind of fulfillment that sneaks up on you in quiet moments, when you're not performing, not striving, just being. And suddenly you realize you're content. This is one of the clearest signs that you're walking in God's blessing. You feel fulfilled even without having everything you thought you needed. You feel full even without having it all. You may not have the biggest house or the flashiest title, but you wake up with peace. You go to bed with purpose. You smile more often, not because life is perfect, but because your spirit is at rest. The world might look at you and wonder, why are you so content? And the answer is simple, because you're where God wants you to be, and there is nothing more satisfying than that. You're no longer living for validation. Before, maybe you needed constant affirmation. Maybe you needed people to notice your success or validate your choices. Maybe your self-worth rose and fell with applause. But now, you feel secure, even in silence. That's fulfillment. You don't need to post every win or prove yourself to people who never understood your vision, because you've stopped living for approval and started living with assurance. Assurance that you're walking in purpose, that God sees you, that He's pleased with you, and that's enough. Fulfillment that flows from within. There's a difference between happiness and fulfillment. Happiness is circumstantial. It comes and goes. It depends on mood, money, and moments. But fulfillment? That's rooted. It's the quiet strength that remains even when life is hard. It's the deep joy you carry even when you're not winning by the world's standards. Fulfillment means you can face setbacks without crumbling. You can endure delays without doubting your worth. You can keep walking forward not because life is easy, but because your purpose is real. You use what you have differently. When God blesses you with fulfillment, you begin to see everything differently. Your time, your money, your energy. You no longer ask, what can I get from this? You ask, how can I use this? You begin to treat your resources as gifts, tools to build, to heal, to bless. Your money becomes fuel for generosity. Your time becomes sacred. Your energy gets directed toward things that matter, things that last, things that honor God. That's fulfillment, not just having more, but doing more with what you have. The pressure to prove yourself begins to fade. One of the greatest freedoms that comes with God's blessing is this. You no longer feel the need to compete. You don't have to keep up. You don't have to compare. You're no longer running someone else's race. You're owning your lane. And in that lane, there's peace. You can cheer for others without resenting their success. You can watch someone else rise and still feel secure in your assignment, because you know what's yours will find you. You don't need to force it. God's blessing makes room for you without requiring you to fight for attention. Fulfillment makes you resilient. Here's something most people miss. When you're fulfilled, you bounce back faster. You don't spiral into despair every time you hit a bump. You don't take failure personally. You don't need everything to go your way to stay faithful. You've tasted purpose. You've lived through storms and seen God stay faithful.
And now there's a quiet resilience in you, one that can't be faked. You carry scars, yes, but also strength. You've lost some things, but you've gained what matters most: perspective. And that perspective is what keeps you grounded when the winds of life start to blow. Your relationships begin to reflect your wholeness. Another beautiful sign of this deep fulfillment is the way your relationships shift. You stop seeking people to complete you and start attracting people who complement you. Why? Because whole people attract whole connections. You're no longer driven by desperation. You're not trying to be enough for someone else. You already know you're enough for God, and that confidence changes everything. You start setting healthier boundaries. You communicate more clearly. You give without losing yourself. You love without fear of losing your identity. That's what happens when you're fulfilled. You give better because you're not running on empty. The need for excess fades. When you're fulfilled, you no longer need more to feel like you matter. More clothes, more followers, more attention, more money. It all starts to feel hollow. You realize that more stuff doesn't mean more peace, and that the joy you found in simplicity is far more satisfying than any image you were trying to maintain. You don't need to show off anymore. You don't need to prove your success, because fulfillment has taught you the most powerful lesson: nothing to prove, nothing to hide, nothing to fear. You start living for the eternal. Perhaps the most profound part of this kind of blessing is how it reorients your view of time. You stop living for the weekend. You stop obsessing over the next vacation. You stop counting down to some future if-only moment that promises happiness. You start living for the eternal. You realize that today, this very moment, can be sacred if lived with purpose. You live with intention, with gratitude, with eyes open to how God is working now, not just later. Fulfillment teaches you that the kingdom of God isn't something you wait for, it's something you walk in. The world didn't give it, and the world can't take it. When you carry God-given fulfillment, people will notice. They might ask what's different, why you seem so at peace, why you're not rattled by chaos or defined by trends. And the truth is, they won't always understand it, because this kind of peace, this kind of wholeness, didn't come from the world. And that means the world can't touch it. You could lose the job, the status, the platform, and still be whole, because your blessing was never in the things, it was in the foundation. A foundation built on trust, purpose, obedience, and divine alignment. God's fulfillment is the anchor. This is what true blessing looks like, when your spirit is anchored, even if your circumstances change. When you don't need constant reassurance because your confidence comes from God. When your life is marked not by noise, but by substance. When people leave your presence feeling seen, heard, and inspired, not because you tried to impress them, but because you simply overflowed from a place of wholeness. That's fulfillment. That's blessing. That's the life God is inviting you to live.
If this message touched your heart, take a moment to like the video. It helps more than you know. Share it with someone who might need this today. And if you want more content that feeds your soul, subscribe and stay with us. Your journey matters, and you're not alone.
When God blesses you, His favor doesn't just touch what you do. It transforms how you see. It shifts your vision. It changes what you value. And one of the most powerful signs of that blessing is this. You start to view everything you have, your time, your talents, your treasure, not as possessions to protect, but as gifts to steward. You become less focused on what can I gain, and more focused on what can I give. Your life becomes an offering. You begin to realize that everything you've been given, your influence, your income, your insight, wasn't just for you. It was entrusted to you to make an impact. And when you live with that mindset, your entire life becomes an offering, a gift back to God. Not out of obligation, not out of guilt,
but out of deep, genuine gratitude. You stop counting what you've received and start looking for ways to multiply it, to sow it into others, to serve, to lift, to heal, to build. That's the kind of life God blesses, one that is open-handed and open-hearted. Blessing produces generosity, not entitlement. There's a trap that comes with material success. It whispers that you deserve more, that you've earned it, that you're better than. But when your blessing comes from God, it produces the opposite effect. You don't feel entitled, you feel humbled. You don't grow prideful, you grow generous. Because you know, I didn't get here on my own. I didn't climb my way to this place. I was carried here by grace. And that awareness keeps your heart soft. It keeps your posture low. It turns you into someone who gives, not just when it's convenient, but consistently. You stop seeking the spotlight. When you're walking in divine blessing, you no longer need to be the center of attention. You're not looking to be celebrated. You're looking to be effective. You show up, you serve, and you're content even if nobody applauds, because your reward is internal. It's eternal. It's not measured in followers or likes. It's measured in obedience. And that obedience opens the door to even greater favor. You become a channel, not a container. One of the greatest mistakes people make is thinking blessing is meant to be stored. But blessing that is hoarded becomes stagnant. When God blesses you, it's not so you can contain it, it's so you can become a channel of peace in chaotic spaces, a channel of love in places filled with hate, a channel of wisdom in a world drowning in noise. You start asking, how can I let this flow through me? And when you do, something incredible happens. The more you pour out, the more God pours in. Your impact begins to multiply. This is where it all starts to shift. You realize that the blessing on your life isn't just for comfort, it's for calling. And your calling is not just about personal success, it's about legacy. It's about leaving people better than you found them. About using what you've learned to teach, to mentor, to elevate others. You may not be famous. You may not have a global platform, but your impact is real, quiet, deep, lasting. And in God's eyes, that's everything. You start moving differently. There's a confidence that comes with blessing, not arrogance, confidence. Not because you think you're better than others, but because you know who sent you. You walk into rooms differently. You speak with more clarity. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable. Because you're not trying to impress, you're trying to impart. You know you carry something valuable, wisdom, experience, testimony, and you're ready to use it, not to elevate yourself, but to lift others. That's what happens when God blesses you. You stop playing small. You stop hiding. You start walking like someone who knows they've been trusted with something sacred. You become a living testimony. Your life becomes a message, not a sermon, a story of healing, a story of growth, a story of mistakes, mercy, and miracles. And people start to listen, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. But when people see the peace in your eyes, the steadiness in your walk, the grace in your presence, they know something's different. And that difference is the evidence of divine blessing. You become the answer to someone else's prayer. Maybe someone's been praying for encouragement, and then you walk in. Maybe someone needed guidance, and you share a word that changes their direction. Maybe someone felt invisible, and your kindness reminded them that they still matter. That's how God works. He blesses you so that you can become the answer for someone else. He turns your healing into someone else's hope. He turns your journey into someone else's map. He turns your blessing into someone else's breakthrough. And suddenly you realize you were never just blessed for yourself. You were blessed to be a bridge. Your eyes are open to needs around you. When you're walking in blessing, you begin to see things differently. Your eyes are no longer focused only on your own problems. They're open to the needs of others. You start noticing the people who are hurting. You feel a tug to help when you see lack. You stop ignoring the pain around you and start asking, "What can I do?" And even if your resources are limited, your compassion is not. You show up, you pray, you serve, you give, you love. Because when your heart is aligned with God's, your hands move like His. Blessing turns into movement. Eventually, blessing becomes bigger than just a moment. It becomes a movement. Through you, healing begins to ripple. Through you, courage begins to spread. Through you, faith begins to rise in others. And your life, once ordinary, becomes evidence of what's possible when God takes over. That is the power of a life truly blessed. Not just full, but overflowing.
When God blesses you, the final and perhaps most powerful sign is this. You begin to walk in eternal significance, not fleeting success, not momentary applause, but impact that echoes beyond your lifetime. Blessing is not just about what you receive, it's about what you leave behind. You begin to think legacy. You're no longer consumed with the short term. Your prayers change from "God bless me" to "God use me." You start to ask, how will my life impact my children? How will my choices bless the next generation? How can I leave the world better than I found it? That's when you know you're blessed, when your eyes are on eternity and your heart beats not just for now, but for what comes after. Your decisions are driven by purpose, not pressure. You stop making decisions based on fear or trends. Instead, you make them based on purpose. You begin turning down opportunities that are impressive but not aligned. You start choosing the narrow path, the one that may not be popular but is pure. Because you've seen what it's like to chase the world, and now you've tasted something better. God's blessing recalibrates your compass, no longer north to fame or success, but true north to faithfulness. Your life has weight. There's a kind of weight to your life that others can feel, not heaviness, substance. People feel safe around you. They feel heard, seen, understood. Your presence brings clarity. Your words carry wisdom. You've walked with God, and it shows. You don't have to say much. You don't have to prove anything, because blessing has turned you into a pillar, steady, grounded, anchored. And in a world full of noise, your quiet strength speaks volumes. You inspire without trying. People begin to watch your life and think, if God can do it for them, maybe He can do it for me. And that's exactly the point. You didn't earn this. You didn't manufacture this. You surrendered, and God built something through your surrender that can't be explained, only witnessed. You become a living, breathing example that a surrendered life is a blessed life. And that inspiration isn't accidental, it's assignment. You're not just blessed, you're transformed. This is where it all comes together. You started this journey thinking blessing was about things, promotions, money, recognition.
And yes, God can bless in those ways. But as you've seen, His greatest blessings are the ones that transform you. You now carry peace that circumstances can't shake. Walk through doors you never could have opened alone. Reflect a character shaped by fire and grace. Desire His purpose more than your own plan. Feel fulfilled without needing external proof. Live generously, love boldly, and lead quietly. Think legacy. Walk in purpose. Impact eternity. That is the evidence of true blessing, not what you've gained, but who you've become. You realize the real blessing is Him. At the end of the day, all signs of blessing point to one thing: His presence. The real treasure isn't peace, opportunity, or even purpose. It's God Himself. You begin to understand deeply that the best part of the blessing is being close to Him. You no longer need constant proof that He's working. You just know. And in that knowing, there is rest, joy, wholeness. You've stopped striving. You've stopped proving. You've learned to just be and to walk in rhythm with His grace. That's where the real blessing lives. God's blessing redefines everything. Here's what you now know deep in your spirit. Blessing isn't the absence of problems. It's the presence of peace. It's not always what you get. It's who you become. It's not just about success. It's about significance. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet confidence. It's not always fast. Often it comes through seasons of waiting. But always, always, it brings you closer to Him. That's the measure of real blessing. That's the legacy of divine favor. So how do you know if God is blessing you? Look at your life. Do you feel peace that makes no sense? Have doors opened that you never could have forced? Is your character becoming softer, stronger, wiser? Have your desires shifted toward purpose? Are you fulfilled even without having everything you once thought you needed? Are you giving more, loving more, serving more? Are you walking lighter, but living deeper? If you can say yes to even some of these, take heart. God's hand is on you. You are not forgotten, not overlooked, not waiting to be blessed. You're already in it. It's unfolding, it's building, it's becoming. So keep going, keep trusting, keep walking. Because when God blesses you, truly blesses you, the world will see it, but your heart will feel it first. Let your life be proof. In the end, you may never be able to fully explain what God has done in your life, and that's okay. Let your peace be your message. Let your purpose be your megaphone. Let your presence speak louder than your words. Let your life be living proof that when God blesses you, nothing stays the same. Not your heart, not your path, not your identity. You become different, and through you, the world becomes better. That's the power of His blessing. That's the sign you're walking in something sacred. You are not just lucky. You are blessed. And this, everything you've seen, everything you've grown through, everything you're still becoming, this is only the beginning. Because when you walk with God, His blessings don't have an expiration date. They keep coming, they keep growing, and they keep transforming you, so you can transform the world. You are walking in divine favor. Now, go live like it.